Ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, welcome back. Brother of Havoc here once again, as Bookie2988 would say, through the power of the internet, to bring you something a little bit different for my Fitting Mondays. A lot of you have taken to heart my offering to take requests for specific fittings, and I'm really pleased about that. Please don't stop. Just keep giving me the requests. However, most of you have gone about this in a simple way. You've asked for just a type of suit. Like when I did Lord Elrond Sheepslayer, people were saying something about like, hey, can you do an Amar or a Galente assault suit? Or after my Ewar Amar Scout video, some of you were asking for Caldari, Galente, and Mimitar versions of that suit. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. A lot of you are curious as to how I would play or are interested in those suits, or in some cases, you've already skilled into those suits and now you don't know how to fit the suit in order to do well. And I'm more than willing to help you, but if I were to make a basic or general fitting video for every suit, it would be years before I would be finished, and I wouldn't have some fun and entertaining or innovative loadouts for you to play with. What I'm saying is that if you need help on getting a basic idea for how to fit a suit, there are easier ways and faster ways of finding that help. You can look at what I usually do, which is to actually look at already fitted suits, the Apex suits and the combat loadouts that CCP provides in the loyalty point store, in the ARM store, and also in the you can purchase for ISK the combat bundles. Now, I originally questioned a lot about these suits that were already fitted. Sometimes I didn't understand why CCP had originally chosen to use some modules or even variations on modules, like using a Pharaoh scale and an armor plate at the exact same time. However, I did practice around, did play with them a little bit, and I even tried in prototype versions of them, and I did fairly well. So I have to say that if you want to, look at some of those Apex suits, some of those combat bundles, and literally just make a prototype version of that suit. Same modules, just prototype modules, same suit, just prototype suit. And you'll probably be surprised by how well you actually do. Most of the time, you actually survive. I actually survived a number of different instances where I thought I should have died. Okay, so suppose that you don't have an Apex suit, or you don't like the Apex suits. Something else you can look at is the starter fits, not just to get information from them, but also to use them to, mess around with them a little bit to, practice, because they're a cheap source of basically suits. Starter fits are a good source of ideas for me anyway. They're a pretty good basic fit. They're made by CCP, and they're supposedly good for all new players, no matter what your previous game style or what previous game you've played. I found that advanced variations of these suits can actually be pretty impressive. Prototypes, you don't have enough modules that are already in place. You usually only have 3 or 4 modules in the starter suits, whereas the prototypes might have, 7, 8 different module slots that you would have to fit. But whatever. Just don't be afraid to mess with the militia suits, the starter fits, because they're already pretty much paid for. You can easily just replace 1 or 2 things here and there, just to try out certain things, like a mash driver, just to try to figure out how to get the arc down, or a plasma cannon if you want to figure out how to anticipate enemy vehicles rather than trying to pull out a Proto and just, whatever. Anyway. If you have starter fits that aren't in your race specifically, like say you're a Caldari starter, but you've for some reason changed, or you respect your skill points and now you're a Galente user, then it's no big deal. One other thing you can look at is the LP store. CCP supposedly made a selection of modules, weapons, and vehicles available in specific faction stores for a reason. Maybe they saw something that you might have overlooked, like why Galentes have armor uppers, and the Amar have armor plates, and the Caldari have shield energizers, and the Mimitar have shield extenders, it's kind of, I think I might be confused here a little. I don't know, but check out the LP stores and just see some of the modules they have on a regular basis, and try using variations of those modules. It's fairly surprising, actually. Now, should those other options fail, should messing with the starter fits fail, should Apex suits not be the thing for you, or maybe you're bored, or maybe the LP store isn't your deal because you don't play faction at all, and the modules for whatever reason just aren't a good choice for you. One thing you can always check out is the stats. Always keep an eye on the stats. Finding out which particular stats are higher on a chosen suit, like a Mimitar Scout, than the other racial versions, like the Amar Scouts, you can use that higher stat to your advantage. You can either choose to boost that particular stat. As I said, the Mimitar are kind of like a speed kind of thing, and they have higher speeds and stamina than other races. You can choose to put Kincats and Cardios in that thing to increase its ability to keep running. Or you can instead work on other stats that are lacking in numbers. For instance, if the Mimitar Scout has essentially 140 HP, you can try to put on a Pharaoh Scale and a Shield Extender, and essentially double your overall health. It's kind of a weird thing to go about, but I found that looking at the stats sometimes helps when you have run out of ideas or are just a little confused as to why you're not doing as well. An option that I prefer, actually, is finding odd ways to entertain yourself. Creating a suit that you can mess around with, like a jumpsuit or a cloaked AV fit. Sometimes the best way to create a suit that you can do well in is to treat the game like a game. Don't take every death serious. Just realize that you're going to die and accept this fact and get over it. Take things less seriously. Now, not everyone can take things less serious. So, for those of you who are extremely serious about this game or games in general, the last method I can really say you can look at is repetitive testing. Constantly using a specific suit like the Mimitar Logistics suit and creating multiple variations of it. Sometimes each loadout is almost completely the same as the one I was using before. But you can swap a complex module with an enhanced module, or a weapon for a different weapon, or instead of using a light weapon in your only slot, you can use a sidearm. Sometimes this costs a lot, but it's not going to be for everyone, but it generally will help you tweak your suit to perfection into your game style. Now, remember, there is no such thing as the perfect suit, the perfect fitting, the perfect loadout. But if on the off chance you're still not finding a suit that you can use fairly well on a regular basis, maybe you should try looking into vehicles. It's not a bad method or anything like that, and sometimes they can be fairly cheap. Please remember one last thing whenever you're testing, though. Whenever you're trying to find a fitting, whenever you're looking into playing Dust 514, fittings and loadouts can only take you so far. In some cases, you can have a perfectly good fitting. It's reliable, and you still can die 10 to 20 times in a single match. Each fitting should be made in consideration with your particular style of gameplay, and you should not assume that one fitting or another will enable you to become a better player immediately. During a match, your screen is filled with a large amount of information. Player positions, enemy placements, your passive scans, your ammo counters, your health, your overall sprint, stamina. Use this information. Okay, that's like the last method I have. I know this is a fairly general video that doesn't go into too much detail. I'm sure some of you were expecting me to go into numbers or giving tips on specific modules as if some were great and others were shit. Sorry to disappoint you. There is no shit suit, there is no shoot module, there is no great module, there is no perfect fitting. It's all just kind of a guessing game with repetitive testing. It's science. If you still have a question or you want to request a fitting, please keep in mind two things that I would need. I need the type of suit and the race. In other words, if you want me to do a heavy suit, that's not enough information. I would like it if you said, okay, well, how about a Caldari Sentinel? Or how about a Caldari frame, a basic frame, heavy frame, or complex or whatever. Also, gameplay style. Do you prefer close quarters combat, long range, E-War, AV, anti-vehicle? You want a supporting role? Do you want the supporting role to be a constant? Do you want to induce chaos or even fear? Those two things are really the important bits that I need. You can provide additional information. Like, for instance, if you have a specific weapon and you want to know how to use it better, or you would like to know in what methods to use it, you can give me the weapon, you can give me grenades, hell, you can give me the equipment. And if you really want, give me a fitting that you already have, and I can do a review on it. Now, I don't promise to make a fitting video for every one of your requests. Can't do it. It takes too long. People are constantly going for requests. I'll try to get the more entertaining ones just because, keep my interest and keep your interest. But I will promise to make fitting videos for as long as I can. I'm still going to keep to the once-a-week schedule, though, in order to get a decent number of chances to play Dust with that particular request's suit. I tend to play on average about 10 hours per fitting, so I try to give it the best testing experience. And life doesn't always give me regular hours to play. Sometimes things happen and I can't play until Saturday. So if I try to promise something like a Monday and Friday fitting video, it might not happen sometimes. But anyway, as always, I'm Brother of Havoc, and I hope you will continue to support me and my channel and remember the things that I've mentioned previously. Good night and pleasant dreams.